30 and he
For the Aussies, I just DM'd them. I didn't realize this, but no, they've been here the whole day. They've just been lying in bed. This is why they don't fucking go outside
suddenly
like that.
message, I quite literally said, this is a joke. This can't be happening. I've never met.
What was the cause of death? Jesus Christ, dude. Okay. Where are your two boyfriends? We want the Chinese movie. I don't know where they're at. They left and they haven't told me where they went. I have no idea where they're at. I'll DM them right now and ask them where they're at, because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub. If you're lucky, here's a 3-minute ad break now. Let me see. $34MKD50, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. So hey Bozo, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Yes, there is a 3-minute ad break coming for you right now, but you can avoid them with the gifted subs if you're lucky. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. You better drop the top of the hour part after how many times you missed it. 304 is not missing the top of the hour. Are you fucking joking? I think 10 minutes prior and 10 minutes after is perfectly valid for being designated as top of the hour.
Hey everybody, what's up?
Anti-woke content is trash from Noah Sampson. We'll take a look at this, but let's get started
Joe
on
in
this.
person, but we've been friends for approximately 3 years, writing back and forth, helping each other with YouTube videos. And seeing as Joe is only 30 years of age, and to see that the guy was in such great shape, he was a gifted athlete his entire life, and he was always striving to be shredded 365 days a year. This guy physique was remarkable, incredible. He had the dream of becoming an IFBB pro. Now, because he's only 30 and he...
For the Aussies, I just DM'd them. I didn't realize this, but no, they've been here the whole day. They've just been lying in bed. This is why they don't fucking go outside like that.
Died. And as I'm recording this, I'm hearing that his girlfriend is saying that it was an aneurysm. And so what that is a weakening of a blood vessel. And so imagine that you have a balloon and there's one spot in the balloon that's a little bit thinner than the rest, and you squeeze on the balloon. That is the most likely spot where something could burst. And so in an aneurysm, this is happening in a blood vessel. Now remember, with higher blood pressure, the risk is a lot greater. Just think of it. That weakened balloon, if there's not a lot of air in it, it's probably not going to bust. But if you keep blowing on the balloon, whatever the spot is the weakest, that is the most likely spot that's eventually going to burst. And so apparently this is what happened. I don't know for sure. And an aneurysm, it can occur throughout the body. It could be somewhere in the heart. It could be in the brain. And so depending on where this occurred and how important that blood vessel is to your survival, well, that's going to dictate the ultimate outcome. She states that 3 days before this happened, he had a pain in his neck, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was from an aneurysm. The pain could be something different. He could have been training at the gym. Last I spoke to Joe, he had been doing some BMX riding and had landed very hard and had felt a little bit of pain in his arm. I can't remember if it was shoulder or bicep. And so we don't know if this neck pain that happened about 3 days before was related to the supposed aneurysm or not. There's going to be a lot of speculation that it had to have something to do with anabolic steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. Joe Lindner was very open, honest, and transparent and told us everything that he was doing. In his younger days, he did admit that he had been abusing performance-enhancing drugs, mainly steroids, and that this was not healthy for both his body and his mind. In particular, he was very much against the use of tren. He did not think this was a drug that anyone should ever use. Joel did not promote the use of steroids, and in fact, he wanted to help people to understand that you shouldn't be doing these things. Because he had abused it in his past, he had to go on HRT. And so because he had such an incredible physique, many people assumed he's not really just on HRT. There's no way he could have a physique like that. But if you look back at his genetics when he was younger, the amount of muscle that he had...
HRT is TRT, chat.
Because this guy's genetics were that...
He's talking about TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, which is very commonplace and given to you by a doctor, and super well regulated overall. It's much weaker than supposed to be much weaker than you know, the illegal stuff that you get on your own.
Good that even with lower doses, he could have a physique like that. More recently, he ended up doing 2 competitions in men's physique trying to earn a pro card. I did, in fact, help to coach him for this. And so I know exactly what he was taking for these competitions. And many of you are thinking, oh, he probably upped the doses so high and that's what caused him to get a heart attack. But I can assure you, he was taking less than what.
The guys that do stuff like this will always get blood work done too. Like there's 0% chance he wasn't like constantly monitoring his blood. There's no way. But I think like even when you're doing it safe, quote unquote, you can still run into issues. Don't know if I'm not saying that it's the steroids that caused him to have this problem. It can happen to anyone. People that don't use steroids can have this this thing happen to them. I don't know.
What most beginners would take on their very first cycles. And so I'm not going to say exactly what he took. I do believe that's private information. I can tell you, he was not taking very high doses whatsoever. One thing I do know is that Joe Lindner struggled to stay that lean all the time. He was constantly battling hunger and was drinking a ton of coffee. I believe he said at one point he was drinking 4 liters a day. And if the coffee had a lot of caffeine, which is a stimulant, this can dramatically reduce your appetite. Now, we all know that the combination of anabolic steroid use and vigorous weightlifting can lead to left ventricular hypertrophy, but we also know that if you take a lot of stimulants, this can place a greater demand on the heart. If you're always amped up from caffeine, which is preventing you from being as hungry, you're taking stims of any kind, even though caffeine is 100% legal, it's still a drug. This combination of factors could have led to potential arrhythmias in the heart. Just think of it. Your heart is changing shape. It's changing sizes. And so the chances of something going wrong, even if it's small, are greatly enhanced. And so if you're thinking, oh, I can take steroids, I'll just use low doses, it won't happen to me. Well, look at Joe Lindner, 30 years of age. Guy was a phenomenal athlete. He was doing cardio, eating healthy. The guy was super fit. And yet it happened to him. Also, have you seen how vascular Joe Lindner always is? The veins are pushing out through his skin, almost bursting through him. And perhaps, and remember, I'm not a doctor, but could that have been because his body demanded more blood? That he had to increase the circulation? Did he have an increase in red blood cells? Did he have increased blood plasma volume? Remember, when you take steroids, it can affect your hematocrit. You can get more red blood cells and the volume of blood underneath, it can go up. When you have more blood, in particular more red blood cells, the blood gets thicker compared to being more like molasses as opposed to water. If you have thicker blood, you're more likely to get a heart attack and or a stroke. And with the use of anabolic steroids, perhaps he could develop athero or arteriosclerosis. And one more thing, Joe Lindner, perhaps he's most famous for this, his alien DNA, the fact that he could make his chest muscles dance, all the striations quivering back and forth just by stretching out his chest. When that happens, and remember, I'm not a doctor, could it
What's a condition?
not be from an electrolyte imbalance? And so perhaps that's a sign that something was going on in his body, that perhaps the
No, it's not just that. It's not that he had like super low body fat. Striations come with low body fat, but what he had, I think, was literally a condition. It's like cramping. Yeah. It's not like a good thing. I mean, it looks cool, but
electrolytes, they weren't all in balance. I don't think it's a normal occurrence for your body to do this on any given day throughout your life. And so I don't think this has anything to do with his cholesterol. I do believe that he was getting blood work done. They would have noticed something like this. And so remember, just because you're getting regular blood work, it doesn't prove that there's nothing going on inside your body. Blood work can help, but it can't find everything. And so nobody knows for sure what he did or didn't take, but what we do know is 30 is far too young to be taken away from us. And so if this has anything to do with performance-enhancing drugs, or it's simply some predetermined genetic condition that he suffered from, perhaps in the future we'll find out. But as of right now, to me, this is shocking news, to be only 30 years of age and to pass away. Joe Lindner was loved by millions of fans. He never had anything bad to say about anyone. Loved this guy. He was a great...
I mean, there's so much that he did that's bad beyond the steroids. I mean, literally something as simple as drinking 4 liters of coffee a day while on TRT, while having that level of low body fat. Like, we joke. I joke with Brian all the time. You guys saw Brian yesterday. He's like around 6% body fat. But like, when you're that low, when your body fat percentage is that fucking low, like missing, I'm not even kidding, missing a fucking meal can kill you. Like, not one meal, but it's incredibly unhealthy. Once you get beyond like 6%, once you get beyond 6% body fat, or like around 6% body fat, you got nothing in the tank. As opposed to a person who is like super obese, as long as that person is properly getting water, they could literally go for like 90 days without eating. People have done it before.
Greg, in today's video, I'm going to be answering many of your questions regarding the passing of Joe Lindner, or Joesthetics. And so the entire fitness community has been completely devastated over Joe Lindner's passing. Remember, he's only 30 years of age. And
I remember him getting injured. I forget. It was like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I remember him getting injured and then like having to go back into the gym after atrophy. And it was like freak-like, dude. The difference between was it his arm? It was fucking freak-like, the difference between his arm that was like atrophied versus his other arm.
And for the most part, people want to know, what was his cause of death? When someone leaves us, part of the grieving process is finding out what exactly happened. What was the cause of it? What may or may not have led to it? We want to know, is there someone to blame? Can we point the finger? Was it something he did? Was it something he didn't do? And when we look at it from the outside, for example, if you're not in his immediate family, you're not one of his friends and family, you want to know, is there something that he did that I could avoid doing that would allow me to live longer? No one wants to believe that something that they are doing, that they choose to do, is impacting how long.
Yeah, imagine having such low body fat, constantly being 2 meals away from a common diabetic emergency. Yeah. What the fuck was that? Better not be acting out.
How long they're going to be here on this earth. For the most part, ignorance is bliss, and we don't want to believe that the things that we're doing or not doing are going to impact our lives. And so the number one cause of concern, of which I had not discussed in my previous video, was that Joe Lindner had been on the Bradley Martin podcast discussing the fact that he had received
Bradley Martin killed. No, I'm sorry.
4 shots, and I'm not talking about alcohol.
I got the vaccine.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Even 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Joe had expressed concern that he had taken those shots out of peer pressure, that he didn't really want to do them, and that in getting his blood work, he had seen some strange abnormalities.
It's the same like you go to a party.
You were worried about your heart?
And you are with the wrong people. All of a sudden, you might do something on this party that you don't want to do because there's these people that are like, you know, you should do it.
And I can tell you that I've also taken those shots for the exact same reasons as Joe described in that video.
Why are these guys such pussies, dude? They're like, oh man, peer pressure got me to take the vaccine. Oh, boo boo. Dude, you're like this. Imagine being this like gigantic Jack guy and being like, oh, I got peer pressure to taking the vaccines.
I don't like, fuck no.
Yeah.
Whatever. It is what it is.
When I think about it later on, I'm like, what did I do, man? But
And so remember, depending on the country you're in, you may or may not have had to have taken this. To travel, to work, to go to movies, restaurants, and so on, some countries required you to take this and others didn't. And so Joe ended up doing a...
Okay, you can't say this big baby is afraid of needles, okay? None of the three men that we've seen on camera are afraid of needles. I do think it's wild that we are talking about like people doing cutting edge body science that is not like 100% medically approved. And in some instances, dare I say, illegal. Talking about one of the most tested inoculations of all time. Being afraid of one while doing the other is always going to be wild to me.
Plasmapheresis, something to clean out his blood, and he did this on 2 separate occasions. He was trying to be healthier than last time. Joe was very proactive with his health. Remember, he did in fact abuse PEDs when he was younger, but he was only on HRT, and when he prepped for his various competitions, he hardly added anything to his cycle. I can promise you that he was very concerned with his health, far more than the average person, was getting regular blood work and doing everything the right way. And so because of that, many people are speculating that they know that the reason for Joe's passing is because he did those 4 shots. While other people are speculating that no, it has nothing to do with that. It absolutely has everything to do that he was not 100% natural. Now remember, it's only been a few days and an autopsy has not yet been performed. And so people that are saying it's a blood clot, that they know this for a fact, that it's an aneurysm, that it's a heart attack, that it's this or that, nobody actually knows the exact answer.
That's what his girlfriend said.
And even after the autopsy report comes out, whether or not it's a blood clot, whether or not it's an aneurysm, it still will not determine what led to that. Let's assume it was an aneurysm and or a blood clot. Does that mean that that was caused from some shots? Does that mean it was caused from taking performance-enhancing drugs? Could it be from taking stimulants, fat burners, doing cardio harder than last time, training with weights in the gym, having too low of a body fat percentage, or having rippling muscle disease? Could it have been perpetuated by his style of diet, the way
I do find it funny that it's like even Greg Doucette is like, come on, guys. Like, look at him. It's one of those situations where it's like, you just say, look at him. You know what I mean? Yeah, look at him, dude. My man is the poster boy for like unhealthy levels of body fat percentage year round.
he ate? Was he over-dieting, overdoing cardio? Was he overly stressed, concerned, not sleeping enough? It could be a mix of everything. But one thing we do know is that underlying genetic conditions can in fact influence how long someone is going to be here on this earth. When someone passes away far too young, as it was in this case, what we do know is it's likely a combination of both environmental and genetic contributing factors. Joesthetics' aunt passed away from developing an aneurysm. And so perhaps his genetics, what he was born with, something he inherited from his parents, perhaps those genetics were not as strong as those from someone else. And so although he appears to be extremely healthy, he's getting regular blood work, we don't know if the veins, arteries, and so on are actually as strong as they could have been. And so because of that, anything that contributed, added strain, made his body have to work harder, in particular, the heart, arteries, veins, capillaries, and so on, all of this could have added up together and contributed to his early demise. And so to simply blame any one given cause as being the reason for his death, to me, that is going too far. You can't say it was because of this or it was because of that. Could it have been because of everything? Absolutely. If he had not gotten any shots, may he have been with us right now? Maybe. Had he not traveled great distances on a plane, would he have...
When he means like shots, I like to think he's talking about steroids, including TRT. Even though in his, I think he means vaccines.
Perhaps survived? Well, maybe. Had he never used performance-enhancing drugs, had he never done a bodybuilding show, had he never done cardio, lifted weights, had the life that he lived, could he be with us here right now? Well, maybe, we just don't know. But even if he was, we don't know if perhaps next year the exact same thing may have happened. I remember growing up, and remember I started lifting weights at the age of 10, and I remember my parents telling me a story of somebody who was lifting weights in the gym at their house. They lifted the weight over their head, and they passed away from an aneurysm. Remember, I was about 12 years of age at the time. And I remember going into the gym, lifting weights, and being very nervous, being very scared, concerned that this was going to happen to me. I was 12 years old. And because I heard of somebody...
Bro, why the fuck were you lifting weights at 12 years old? Holy shit. What kind of weightlifting was he doing at 12 years old? This is like the Baby Gronk situation, dude. Why are you throwing up question marks? Bro, y'all better not be doing fucking compound muscle exercises at fucking 12 years old, dude. I feel like wait until you're at least hitting some level of puberty, you know what I mean? Holy shit. He said he started at 10 years old, not 12. Oh my God.
Somebody dying doing the exact same thing as me, that scared me. Scared me so much that here at 47 years of age, I still remember it. I remember how it made me feel, the fear and in fact panic in lifting weights, and it made me not want to do it. And so when I'm in the gym lifting weights now at 47, I'm not thinking the same way as when I was 12, worried about getting an aneurysm in the gym. But because of Joe's passing right now, I'm analyzing everything I've ever done. I'm thinking, well, I abuse performance-enhancing drugs. I'm on HRT. I, in fact, got 3 of those shots. And I do both cardio and weights harder than last time. Not to mention, I ain't no sober guy. I party harder than last time on the weekends. And so given the fact that I'm 47, this guy was only 30. How lucky am I? How fortunate am I to have my health being this good at this late of an age? Why is it that millions of people around the world have done the exact same thing and in fact far worse, greater doses for longer periods of time? Why are we all okay, but yet Joe was taken from us at such an early age? And so for me, the answer is genetics. No one wants to think that anything that they did or are doing is going to be the cause of their early death. But consider this, how many of you out there drink? How many of you smoke cigarettes? How many of you perhaps were using recreational drugs? What is the most dangerous thing that you're doing? And yet you're still doing it. You're doing it. Perhaps you tell yourself, it won't happen to me. I know that's what I always said. It's not going to happen to me. When I was abusing performance-enhancing drugs, taking tests, tren, and so on, I'm thinking,
holy fuck.
Yeah, but I'm young.
He was so yacked, though. God damn. Holy shit. Look at his fucking belly button.
I eat healthy. I do cardio. I'm fit. I get regular blood work and my blood work looks fine. And so it won't happen to me. But will it? Will it really? How do I know for sure? And so listen, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And we're here to live our best lives. We can't go around thinking the way I did at 12, that every time we go to the gym, that could be our last rep. That anytime we do anything, that this is going to be the last thing we do. Our life would not be fun. We need to move on. We need to keep moving forward. Doesn't mean we forget. Doesn't mean we don't do our best to be healthy, but we can't constantly live in fear. And so if you happen to get a shot or abuse PDs in the past, well, it's in the past. You can't change the past. We can't time travel. We don't get do-overs. But what can you do right now? You can do everything in your power to be as healthy as you can be. It's not about being perfect. It's about being better than you are. Can you do better today than you did yesterday? Can you do better tomorrow than you did today? And so if you're on an abusive steroid cycle right now, perhaps rethink it. Is it worth it? Could you perhaps switch to doing HRT? Have you gone to your doctor? Have you gotten blood work done? If you're overweight and or obese, could you perhaps eat healthier?
I loved it. I loved it. We are, first of all, I never want to hear from a gym guy about HRT ever again. I did not realize that gym guys are already so openly in the post-Joe Rogan world talking about TRT as like the most reasonable substitute to steroids. That's crazy to me. Like they're just so openly talking about, like with Joe Rogan, I feel like back when he used to talk about it on his show, I feel like it was more of a hush-hush subject. Like, it was not as well utilized. And now you got motherfuckers just, like, dropping it as a substitute for illegal steroids. That's wild. They're like, don't do this steroid, do the legal version instead. TRT actually doping, though? Like, come on. What? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. What? It's just like doctor approved and smaller. Dog, I love you, but you do not have the background to give an informed take on this. Not what they do with drug addicts, to move them to safer alternatives until they quit. If it wasn't doping, they wouldn't do it. I mean, literally, you can't even do it. You can't even do it anymore. Like in the UFC, right? Wasn't it UFC that used to allow it? And they don't anymore, I'm pretty sure. For the like, you can say you don't know what you're talking about here, but at least in the world of professional sports, they consider it doping. Or they consider it a performance-enhancing drug, at least. Is it really easy to get a steroid doctor in the U.S. and get TRT? I've never heard of this in the EU. First of all, it's also super easy in the EU, too. If I'm not mistaken, some of those... Dude, back in the day, I remember, I'm old enough... Back in the day, stem cell research was like supposedly going to be banned in America under the George W. Bush administration. So athletes would literally go to fucking Germany to get stem cell rehabilitation.
30 and
For the Aussies, I just did. So pretty sure, you know, the EU is not all that strict on this kind of stuff either.
Could you lose some weight? If you don't do cardio, could you in fact do 150 minutes of cardio a week? If you're smoking cigarettes or vapes, could you perhaps cut down on that? Could you quit? And if you're abusing alcohol or recreational drugs, could you in fact stop or at least cut back on it a little bit? And so of course, Joe's passing is a tragedy. And I'm thinking, how can we learn from this? Well, if we get his autopsy report and it says he died from this or died from that, does that actually change anything? Will you just be quick to point the finger and say, see, I told you it was that, it wasn't this? Or does it not make more sense to perhaps reflect on your life and say, is this the true path that I've chosen? Am I living the life that I wanted to live? Because remember, there is no guarantee you're going to be here tomorrow. There are no guarantees and no doers, and so please live your best life. Don't make the mistakes that you'll regret in the future. Be proactive with your health, ending it here. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, and of course, like the video if you like.
All right. The problem with stem cells was religious. Yeah, I know.
Today we're going to be looking at a video called Why Woke People Are Making Everything Ugly. It's a video from the channel Think Before You Sleep. That's right, old friend of the show. I made a couple videos about this channel and I'm going to keep doing it because I have a lot of fun. The video loosely centers